Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. I've been getting a lot of questions recently about things like refinishing, Duracoat, Cerakote, parkerizing, a lot of general questions that have been hitting our inbox. So we thought that what we would do is make a video about my process for getting a good solid camo pattern on pretty much any gun you want. And really any color configuration you want. My preferred method is to use Duracoat. I have used Cerakote. I do like Cerakote just fine. It is very easy to apply. The application process for both finishes is pretty much identical. They're both very easy to apply and you don't really need a lot of skill. If I can do it, anybody can. If you can spray paint, you can spray Duracoat. In fact, many of you guys have sent me photos recently on Facebook and saying, yeah, I did this camo job and I rattle canned it. Well, I'll tell you what, you want to use spray paint? Feel free to follow these suggestions with spray paint. That's just fine. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I'm going to show my process. There's definitely a lot of ways you can get around it. It depends on the environment that you're trying to match. Concealment and cover are two different things. When you're taking cover, let's just say in a combat situation, if you're hiding behind something that can stop bullets, guess what? That's cover. When you're concealed, you're merely hiding your position. So for most hunting purposes, being concealed is perfectly fine, right? We just want to hide from our potential prey. If we're deer hunting, we're coyote hunting, whatever. So if you're in Southwest Texas, will this color scheme work out for you? No, it may not. So what you'll want to do is look at the environment that you're trying to copy and just take a sampling of colors, get out with your DSLR camera, take some photos, okay? Get some good quality pictures of the area that you're trying to blend into. Then go on Duracoat's website, Lauer Custom Weaponry, go on their website, order the colors you want, and then you can kind of hodgepodge a bit of things together based on the color scheme you want to match. Now, the colors we went with here, this is a KSG. I'm going to show you some finished product first. Then we're going to go on to the process because I know how impatient people can be. You want to see kind of a process. These are ones that we've already completed. The gun that we're about to spray for you is a Air Force Texan. It's an air rifle, but here we have some real guns. What we were going for here was kind of my redneck version of ATAX FG. It's got a little more tan and a little bit more brown in it, a little bit darker greens than you would expect to see in an actual ATAX. But this is kind of my hide in the woods Georgia camo. What you can do is just go around your local area that you're trying to blend into, grab yourself up a bunch of branches and twigs and foliage and other things that you can grab up, and you can use those as a template to spray through. Pretty simple. That's what we're going to end up doing. Generally speaking, your base coat is going to be the most predominant color in the camo pattern. Now, people like Lauer Custom Weaponry, they're a great bunch of people. I've been doing business with them a long time. I've bought a lot of Duracoat over the years. Both their Dura Pearl, Dura Metal, their metallic finishes. I've dealt with a lot of their additives, the Dura Velvet, Dura Flex, I believe. It's like a flexing additive. Their retarder. They sell a lot of different additives that can give Duracoat a lot of different properties depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But generally speaking, I've dealt with their camo templates before and that's just fine. If you want to buy a store-bought camo template, you certainly can. They look beautiful. If you apply them properly, they look great. Okay, there's nothing wrong with a store-bought template. And I'm certainly not trying to deter you from doing it, but I know that sometimes times are tough and money's a little bit short sometimes for folks, especially when you're wanting to take on some of these projects. Here's an AR that we did. Obviously you can see that all of these are the same exact pattern. This is Chad's Predator rifle. It's an 18-inch BCM barrel, SPR inspired build, Geisley rail, Geisley trigger. But in terms of the finish, same thing. The base coat was a color called Mesquite, which is a very light green. Your individual environment is going to vary as to what color you want to lay down, but we're going to go over that here in a moment. This finish was obtained with nothing more than stuff I found out in my yard. All right, so we're going to go over it. We're going to go through, and before the end of this video, we are going to have a completely Duracoated rifle to show you guys. And look, my process is very unscientific. But at one point at Moss, I was doing a lot of Duracoat work, and maybe some of my former customers can kind of chime in and mention that we've done a lot of Duracoat work over the years for various people and some customers of Moss and everything. And we've had some pretty good results. We've had some very happy customers and everything. So I'm going to show you how we do it, what I do to obtain these types of camo finishes. Really, really simple. We're just going to have some fun with it, and let's get to work. We're going to try to work quick and show you the process. All right, guys, we're going to get started here. I'm going to try my best to work quickly, but it is a lot of information. I'm going to try to put it out as quickly as I can here. Here's the piece that we're going to be Duracoating. This is an Air Force Airguns Texan. Awesome, awesome, awesome air gun. This is one of the, pretty much the most powerful production air gun rifles in the world right now. It's topped off with a Armasight Zeus Pro. This is an awesome, awesome thermal. I'm not going to get into too many details. We've done a full review on both of these items if you want to check them out. But I do carry this in the field a lot. We do a lot of predator hunting with this particular rig. Quite an optic to have on a rifle like this, but it does a great job. But we are getting a lot of surface rust, things like that. And let's face it, sometimes we can't always keep our firearms wiped down as much as we'd like to. So what we're going to opt for in the situation of this Texan, we're going to go ahead and Duracoat it. One, not only for the corrosion protection, but for the physical appearance of the gun to help it blend into the woods a little bit better. And we want it to be able to hide really well both day and night. So you saw the pieces we put together earlier. We're going to go with a slightly different setup, slightly different camo scheme, few different colors. That way you guys can kind of brainstorm, get some ideas of your own as to what you might want to do. Now, before you do anything, I'm just going to say that when it comes to the finished product that you're going to get, whether it's Parkerizing, Duracoat, Cerakote, spray paint even, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're going to coat your gun with or treat your gun with, the only result that you're going to get that's good is going to come from the proper preparation of the metal surfaces. That can come in a lot of different ways. Some people will opt to fully disassemble the rifle and meticulously bead blast every single part. That's going to yield the best result. Duracoat tends to adhere, I should say, the best to a parkerized finish that's been completely degreased. Some people will parkerize the part and then Duracoat it. If you want absolute 110% adhesion of the Duracoat, Cerakote, spray paint, whatever you might do, parkerizing holds those materials really well. That's what parkerizing is designed to do. When you spray it down with oil, oil soaks down into all those tiny little pores that are created by the surface finish. It actually etches the surface of the metal and creates a porous environment for oil and paint or any type of thing like that to stick to. In the case of this Texan, we're not going to disassemble this thing. I'm going to show you the quick and what I call the lazy way of Duracoating something. Basically what you're going to want to do is take some Scotch-Brite or steel wool. If you're getting steel wool to use, that's fine. Make sure you degrease the steel wool. So take some Durastrip, Duracoat stripper, and maybe a little bit of steel wool, and just make sure you degrease the steel wool. We're going to go over this entire piece, make sure that it's degreased fully. We're going to scuff up all the surfaces with Scotch-Brite pad and some maybe a little sandpaper. If you don't have access to a bead blasting cabinet, that's fine. You can just scuff up the piece with a little bit of sandpaper and you're good to go. Bear in mind that the result you get and the durability of the result that you get is going to hinge really, really strongly on the preparation of the metal surfaces, how well you remove the existing finish and everything like that. Now, this particular air rifle utilizes a lot of aluminum components. Aluminum has a treating called anodizing, okay? When anodizing is performed on aluminum, it's actually a surface hardening as well. So anodizing imparts a form of hardening on the surface of the aluminum. When you go to bead blast aluminum, you'll notice that you'll get the color of the surface of the metal will disappear, and then it'll start to turn kind of like almost a pink color. You're starting to break through that hardening there. I typically try to just barely, if I do bead blast an aluminum part, I try to just barely go over it, just enough to scuff it up. You don't want to, you want the black to barely just get kissed off of there. If you start seeing that pink color, you know, some folks might argue that I'm wrong about it, but I typically prefer to not bead blast an aluminum part to the point where you're starting to see that pink. You're really getting through that. You're really losing the hardening that you're imparting on that aluminum. So I would avoid doing that. In the case of this Texan, we're going to methodically tape off a couple of areas on the optic that I don't want painted with Duracoat. You know, it's a $10,000 optic, okay? I mean, let's face it, this is an expensive dang optic. I could just pull it off. I am going to go ahead and Duracoat it a little bit in some areas. We're going to kind of tastefully tape it off a little bit. I don't want to get silly with it, but that, and if there's any other mechanisms that have very tight tolerances that you're worried about, things moving together in a very tight fashion, you might want to consider taping some of those areas off. Obviously, for like your AR-15s and stuff, go ahead and remove your bolt and just cover the dust cover closed, you know, snap it shut, and you're good to go. You don't have to worry about, you know, finishing the inside of your gun. Now, this is where some folks are gonna, you know, maybe argue with my methods a little bit. The lazy way is to degrease the rifle or whatever the workpiece is going to be and leave it assembled, and you're only worried about the outside. The way that those firearms were Duracoated, because I wanted that camo pattern to really just work as a cohesive unit across the entire workpiece of those guns over there, I opted to spray them assembled. Now what some guys will do is they'll meticulously disassemble the workpiece, parkerize it, base coat each individual piece, and then reassemble it. And then after that whole reassembly process is done, they're left with a gun in one color. Then they can go through the process of working up their additional layers of camo. And that's probably the by-the-book way of performing a refinishing job. And the reason I'm spending so much time talking about this is because I want to stress that the level of preparation that you take onto the metal surfaces is going to determine how good the finish will adhere, how long it will last, and to some degree, ultimately, how good it's going to look. For the purposes of most people that are just wanting to refinish a gun, to take out in the woods and it's going to get banged around in the truck, and they're just, you know, getting banged around, getting in and out of a deer stand, the method that I'm going to use to do this Texan here is perfectly good for 99.9% of all of the scenarios that most people are going to subject their firearm to. So without further ado, we'll get rolling. I'm just going to explain really easy, guys. I'm going to go through and just scuff up some of this stuff with a little bit of Scotch-Brite, and we're going to degrease it, and we're going to make sure it's completely dry and devoid of any stripping materials, oils. You want to make sure there's no oil on this thing, not a single speck. So we're going to do that. We're going to go down to lay down our first color, our base coat, and we'll get after this. Once you get started and once the prep's done on the metal, the rest of it rolls along really quick, very simple. So let's get started. These contoured sanding pads do a great job of getting down into, you know, when you push on them, they kind of flex, match the contours of what you're trying to sand. Remember, we're not getting crazy, we're just scuffing it up a bit. You can see where along the top, we're getting into the white a little bit, that's okay. This is pretty much cosmetic. I mean, remember, since we're spraying this thing assembled, the underside of this, under this receiver section, is still going to be blued. So, if you need absolute corrosion protection, 24/7, you're going to need to disassemble the entire gun. For our purposes, we're just trying to get her close. It's the way I do a lot of mine, and I don't really have any problems. All right, we got all the preparation done. I've got a variety of colors here we're gonna pick from. I'm just gonna freestyle here. I don't really know what I'm doing. We got this light green that's probably a little lighter than I want to go with. We're going to go with some sniper green as a base coat, nice dark green color. You're going to shake the Duracoat up until you start to hear the ball rattle in the bottom, and continue shaking the crap out of it for a good while. Now, I've already shaken this up prior to making this video, but still, to drive the point home. All right, Duracoat is mixed at a 12-to-1 ratio, 12 parts pigment to 1 part hardener. So a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So if we do 4 tablespoons, then that means that 1 teaspoon is our 1 parts for our 12 parts. Okay, so 3 times 4 is 12, 1 teaspoon, 1 part. Pretty simple, simple math. If a grunt can figure it out, anybody can. So what we're doing is we're just going to worry about our base coat first, and since this is the color that I want to predominantly, you know, be on the rifle, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've sprayed a lot of Duracoat, and this is the method I've used. Never really had any issue with mixing. Some folks will use syringes and all this mess. I just use regular old mixing spoons. Keep your old towel laying around to wipe stuff down with. Now your hardener does have a bit of a shelf life. Just make sure that you're, what I do is I would date the hardener when you get it in, just write the date on it. Because once it starts to get a little bit older, it tends to not want to spray quite as reliably. And I'm almost out of hardener here in this 1 vial. Might be enough to get 1 teaspoon. Looks like it's barely not enough. It's all right, we got more. Look at them ninja skills. Holding the teaspoon while I open up another hardener. All right. Nice rounded off. Now, with the hardener, one thing that I will mention to you guys, you can use a little more hardener than what it calls for, and it's going to give you a little bit of a glossier finish, which is something that you might be looking for. You might want a glossier look. The way that you apply Duracoat is really going to determine the product that you're going to end up with, okay? You know, if you add a lot more hardener, it's going to have this kind of glossy appeal, even though you might be getting a finish like that is a matte finish. Like you can order a matte black Duracoat, but if you add too much hardener, it's still going to come out with a little bit of a sheen to it. So you need to keep that in mind. I'm going to show you here in a moment when we get into spraying. We're just going to mix this up, throw it in our little paint gun here, and I'll show you how to do it. Real easy. We'll get to that here in just a second. All right, go ahead and get your 12-to-1 mix. Real easy. Make sure it's mixed very well. Go ahead and pour it in your airbrush. All right, in this case, I'm using just an automotive touch-up gun. It's got a 1mm needle in it, so it still puts out a pretty fine mist. You've got a couple of adjustments, but I'm not going to get into every little bell and whistle, but one thing I'll mention is on your compressor. Around 30 PSI is good. You can go a little lower if you want. If you go too low on the PSI, you're going to get some splatter. Now, you can go with some splatter if you want that effect. Like on top, some people will go for that kind of splotchy look. That's not what we want here. We want a nice clean base coat. This screw on the bottom adjusts the output. This screw on the back actually controls the flow of the paint through the actual air gun. This adjustment on the front can control the direction of the fan, like which I can turn this either way and it'll shoot it horizontally or vertically in a flat line. And then this adjustment on the side here determines how wide of a spray it is. What it does is it'll control like if it goes like really far out or if it just keeps kind of a tight spray. I keep it set kind of neutral right in the middle, and then what I'll do is just, you know, before I go to my workpiece, what you want to do is you can start the air by just pulling. All right, and you see nothing's coming out, but you want it set to where as you just give a little pressure. All right, you see. like that. All right, while our compressor's off, you want to build it up in layers. So what you'll do is you'll just go over the workpiece back and forth in a nice even fashion. Don't do this number. You know, don't make like a fan shape like that, because what you're going to do is you're going to get uneven Duracoat across the workpiece. You want to keep it parallel to the work surface like this, okay? And you want to go back and forth. You want to start before and apply after, like this. Okay? Just going to go through and, I mean, I know it seems like you're wasting a little Duracoat by doing that, but if you want it to look the most even, that's what you're going to do. It ain't got to be perfect, guys. This is a base coat, remember. So that gives you an idea. That looks real nice and even. You want it to, as you apply it, it's going to kind of have like this almost wet appearance. Obviously, it's paint. It's going to look wet. That's fine. You want that appearance to be even. Okay? Not rocket science, guys. It's no different than painting your lawn chair or, you know, anything else. All right, we're going to take some just acetone here, clean up in between. We're going to change colors. We're going to let that first coat that we put down, our base coat, we're going to let that cure up for about 20 minutes. You know, obviously it's still going to be relatively tacky, but it'll be cured up enough to where we're good to go. We're just going to shake this good, help clear the gun. Normally I would do this outside, but I'm trying to show you guys. You see it starts coming out clear. So just shake it up, clean it out with acetone, and then take an air nozzle and blow this paint gun back out until it's nice and dry, and then you're ready for your next color. So we're gonna let that cure up and we'll move on, start laying down some camo colors. All right, one of the decisions that you're gonna have to make is what type of environment you're trying to blend into. In the case of this gun, I want it to look not only aesthetically pleasing in terms of what we're used to seeing, but I want to create a color scheme that the human eye might not capture or the animal's eye might not capture. And the whole point of camouflage is to mix everything up and break up all the lines. How you would choose to accomplish to do that is really up to you. The colors that you choose are up to you as well. All right, just really depends. I'm going to go with this woodland brown, and we're going to get some brown in here. And then we might follow up with some, maybe another type of brown or like a dark gray or green. So I'm going to go for this woodland brown because we've already applied it on a couple of guns. It looks real sharp. Let's do it. All right, we've waited a good while and we've allowed this to cure up enough to where we can at least just kind of barely touch it just to manipulate the workpiece. We've got some couple of scraps off of a cedar tree out back here. You can go around your natural environment and grab whatever you want, be it reeds, weeds, grass, any manner of crap. If you're going for something more cosmetic, let's say you're not worried about blending in, you just want it to look cool. Another option, you can go get yourself some burlap sacks and take the burlap and cut it into chunks that are kind of easy for you to manipulate. Take it, and what you'll do is grab the burlap and kind of squeeze at it and pull on it so it kind of opens up the fibers really good, and you can get some really neat looking effects, almost like snake skin. Also, some of those like metal grates that have kind of the diamond shapes, you can spray through those if you want something that's a little bit more on the cosmetic side. For the purposes of what I'm trying to accomplish here, obviously we want this thing hide in the woods, green and brown and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to grab some of our crap from the yard, and we're just going to unceremoniously that's it. We're just going for hints. Little bits of brown in there to help break up the lines. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be exact. It's not an exact science. This is just playing around here and just kind of coming up with what works. Sometimes it helps to enlist a hand, get somebody to help you out, kind of hold your workpiece for you. This thing's cured up pretty well. I'm just going to get a helper here to kind of hold my workpiece. Now, however you suspend the workpiece is up to you. It doesn't matter. It literally is up to you. In this case, I've just got some monofilament holding the workpiece up. And I'm by no means a professional at this in any way. I just kind of enjoy what I do with it. All right, we're going to move on. We've got some flat dark earth Duracoat, and we're going to run in with some ferns and give it a little bit of contrast. I'm not going with any colors that are overly light. This flat dark earth is going to look real nice against it, so I'm going to do my best. Worst, however you want to look at it. And remember, not a big deal if it's not perfect. Camo is not perfect. Oh yeah, that's what we want. Check him out. We don't want to overdo it. We want just a little bit of contrast. A little bit of overspray is not a big deal. It's fine. You can go dark, light, dark, light. So like I've got a couple of light spots right here that are probably hard to see in the film. We're just going to go along the back, find us a spot where we can lay it kind of nice and flat, get us some contrast going. Got a little bit more contrast. Just kind of let the workpiece be your judge. Just look at what you're dealing with, play around with it a little bit. You're not going to hurt nothing. It's camo, all right? So we're going to go through and blend all this stuff together, make it look the way we want. Looks good to me. We're just going to do the best we can with it. There's a couple of areas here where I let my actual template that I was using, my piece of fern there, get a little loaded up. And when I opened up the gun to spray, the air kind of blew a little bit of extra Duracoat on the workpiece and made a little bit of a splatter. Guys, if that happens, don't panic. It happens. One thing that you can do to correct it is to just grab yourself like a cotton swab with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and you can immediately clean the piece right there. As long as the under bases of Duracoat have cured completely before you move on to the next color, it's not going to hurt anything that's going on under the Duracoat you just sprayed. You can gently but quickly wipe it away, let it dry off, and you can retry if you want. Otherwise, you can go back over it with another piece of foliage or whatever and just cover it up. It's camo, it doesn't matter. But there's some kind of fern stripes in there, just help break up the lines. So we've got our sniper green, our woodland brown, our flat dark earth. I'm going to go over it with one more color. I'm going to add some little accents in there. Not only does it just look cool, you know, and it has that appeal to it, but it'll help break up some of these other lines. In the areas where we don't have the ferns, we're going to go in with another color, get a little bit of contrast. I don't want it overly light. I want it to stay kind of dark. I want this to blend in Georgia weather or Georgia climate. So basically with the environment we're looking to blend into, this is fine, whether it's a field out in the woods. That's a great kind of blend in the woods camo. And guys, I'm not an expert by any means, okay? I'm not perfect at this stuff. You guys can probably do a heck of a lot better than I can. So this is just to give you some food for thought. So let's move on to our fourth color, and we're going to go ahead and get her finished up here. I'm pretty happy with it. All right, you can see here that we've got some contrast that's been laid down. We took a little bit of Norwegian Army Brown and went in with just a little bit of our cedar pieces to get a kind of a fine type pattern. Went in and laid a little bit of in there to get some contrast. So we got our ferns, our cedar pieces, and then of course our green base coat. A little bit of that woodland brown. So we got 4 colors. Looks real nice. At this point, what you'll do, I'm not going to show you guys because I don't want this video to be longer than it has to be. You're going to get some clear coat. Now they have different types of clear coat. You can get a matte, a semi-gloss, a gloss, and again, depending on how much hardener you put in it, you can go a little bit crazy on the hardener. You can get this crazy like glass surface. For a hunting rig, obviously you want to stick with a matte clear coat. What that's going to accomplish is it's just going to give you a little bit more of an aesthetically pleasing appearance. I'm going to go ahead and just rip this piece of tape off here. All right, so see, we covered our pressure valve. So, you know, obviously we want to cover up our reading so we know how much pressure is in the tank. So this rifle turned out great. I'm happy with it. We're going to get it clear coated. You'll see it in more videos. We're going to be doing a lot of predator hunting and trying to film a lot of hunting. So we hope that you guys will stay tuned for that kind of stuff. The best bit of advice that I can give about this sort of thing, whether you're using spray paint, whether you're using Cerakote, Duracoat, there's a ton of great options out there. I prefer Duracoat. Some of you guys are die-hard Cerakote fans. I like Cerakote too. I've used it. I prefer Duracoat. But one of the things about this process that I can tell you in the way of advice would be to, you know, don't be afraid to just get after it. You know, get behind the workpiece, have a little fun. Don't take anything overly serious. Don't take it too seriously. Just have fun with it. If you're professional and this is something you're doing for a client, and let's just say they want a really specific outcome, you know, the best advice I can give there is tell them the truth about your abilities. Like anybody that I've ever done Duracoat work for, if they come to me and say, I want my gun to be able to hide in the woods really well, I got you covered. But if somebody comes to me with some intricate leopard print, something or another, and that's beyond my skill level, it's okay to tell someone, I'm not good at doing that. Sorry, I can't do that. There's some really challenging templates available from Lauer out there, and they're great templates. They look wonderful. They look very professional. If they're applied properly, they look awesome. That may not be the solution for your client if you're a professional. That may not be the solution that you want as an individual. You may not want to spend the extra money on trying to buy all these templates or something. So don't be afraid to just go grab some stuff out of the yard and just make your gun hide in the woods. And that's what the goal of this was. We accomplished that. If I go set that in the woods, you're not going to see it. I know we didn't Duracoat the optic earlier. I mentioned that we were going to spray the thermal. We decided not to because that thermal might end up living on another gun at some point. I didn't want it to be some crazy camo and then not feel at home on an AR that's all blacked out or something. So I decided to not spray the optic. But you can certainly spray the optic if you want, like this other optic of Chad's here that you saw on the AR earlier. You know, we sprayed the optic to match, and that's perfectly fine. You can do that. Thanks for watching, guys. I know this video was long. I appreciate you sitting through it. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you were entertained a little bit. Thanks again for watching. We'll catch you next time. Much more stuff on the way. See ya.